Welcome, everybody, to episode 6 of Everyone Hates the Commissioner. We're going to have a good one. We have David Wood with us this week and Dan Parker. How's it going, guys? We got 2 Bears jerseys out there. What the hell is up with that?
I'm just doing this for David. I am Packers through and through, but you,
Does
you
that
gotta rock sweetness when you got a Bears fan on the
you
podcast.
feel like that burns your skin a little bit putting that thing on?
Not sweetness. If I was wearing a Fields jersey, it'd be a little hot.
Yeah. I broke out the orange fields. I wore this on my podcast yesterday, actually, called Amateur Hour. Check it out with Nick's good buddy John Opine. But I wore this because my Bears are on Thursday Night Football, rocking the orange jerseys with the orange helmets this week. So
That's
And
sick.
fun fact, Dave, I actually just picked up Justin Fields in our dynasty league. So
I love that. I love the dynasty pick. Are you guys in
little
that same dynasty league with John?
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
Awesome.
For some reason, he was cut after this week, which I was kind of surprised. A second-year quarterback with some high potential. I was pretty surprised that he was let go.
Giving up too early on him, I think.
So I think it was Cody, because Cody has Mahomes.
So.
And I've got quarterbacks, but I would love to just stash him on my bench to see what happens.
Trade piece, if anything, for you.
Mm-hmm. So, Dave, I guess we kind of alluded to it a little bit that I'm really good friends with John, as are you. So John was that beautiful soul that brought us together. So I wanted to say this, and I love giving you shit because you are one of the very few people that loves to win way more than I do. And I love to win a lot. All right. So I'm here, like you're up here, like you got to win, man. I really appreciate that about you. And that's why I like getting you all fired up, especially about your Bears and then other stuff, especially those the beer Olympics games we were playing at John's bachelor party. That was a good time. So
yeah, you like to poke me, man. You love to get me riled up, and I respect that about you. You know my buttons, which buttons to push. So yeah, I feel like I'm very competitive. So it's always good to have some good friendly competition.
Yeah, and I was a little bummed that you denied my invitation to join the Dynasty League, but I completely understand. You got to have a good work-life balance, and if you've already got 2 or 3 leagues in, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, you asked me at the time. I had 4 fantasy baseball leagues. I was going to be in 3 fantasy football leagues, and like you said, I'm competitive. I like to win, and I think if I were to do that dynasty league, it's balls deep for me. It's not like I'm not half-assing anything. I full ass everything. So
Yep.
I was going to be spending a lot of time and effort on that dynasty league. So I was like, you know what? I'll leave it to the boys to have fun.
Yeah, and we definitely are. I think that's kind of the general consensus I've gathered from everybody is like this one. They're spending a lot of time on this one. But you brought up baseball. Sorry to hear about your Rays. I thought it was pretty crazy that there was only 4 total runs scored in those 2 games they played.
Dude, I mean, I looked at my girlfriend after they lost in 15 innings on game 2, and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Not really." I was like, "It's kind of suey season right now," but at the same time, we had plenty of opportunities. We had plenty of opportunities. We had runners in scoring position, even if we were on the road. That's no excuse. I mean, the other 3 series, all the road teams won. So
Yeah,
being on the road is not an excuse. You got to get more action and more runs than what they did. 1 run in 2 games is pretty pathetic.
yeah, it's 24 innings too. That's
24
Gonna
innings,
need some more
not just 2
production.
games. Yeah.
And I was actually going to ask you, and then we'll move on to some football talk. But I don't know enough about it. You follow the Rays and probably baseball a little more than I do, especially since the Brewer games went over to that Bally Sports. I wasn't able to follow as closely. But do you think they jumped the gun a little bit on paying Wander Franco? I mean, was he worth that deal?
That's a good question. I think he was worth the deal. I think it's a risk, and he was banged up a lot of this year. I would say probably 2/3 of the year he was out. But I think they caught him early enough where in 2-3 years, if he was continuing at the projections he was going at then, he had a really solid rookie year, then we'd have to pay him way more. So I think they caught him early enough. If you look at like the Atlanta Braves and how they run, I know we'll talk football in a minute, but like they're catching all these superstars early and they're paying them like next to nothing compared to what they're worth and what they will be worth. So I think catching these superstars as early as possible is like the way that the MLB is kind of getting on top of it. And you shine $150,000 or like $150 million in front of these young prospects, like they're going to bite at it and take it. You fast forward 5 years and $150 million, they're going to be scoffing at. So I think you got to
Yep.
get it to them early and get those long deals in.
Yep, that's fair. It's a very fair point. Yeah, like you said, the Braves are doing that a lot with a lot of their players. I think they just did that with a pitcher, just in the
Spencer
last few
Strider,
days.
yeah,
Yeah.
their
Yep.
future is very bright.
Yeah. So, Dave, where are you from, and what do you do for work?
Yeah, I am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Actually, I know I'm a Bears fan. My dad, born and raised in Chicago. I have an older brother who's also a Bears fan. So, I kind of started watching football when they were relevant and solid. You think back to '06 Super Bowl. I would have been, let's see, 9 years old. So that was
Yep.
kind of right when I was getting caught in. So from Milwaukee, went to school at Drake. That's how I met John, and then I'm a pharmacist currently in Omaha, Nebraska.
Cool. How is Nebraska?
Same as Iowa and Wisconsin, I would say. Not much different. Pretty boring, pretty bland, but it's been fine.
Yeah, I have to say I drove through Nebraska with John on the way out to Las Vegas, and when we across the Iowa Nebraska border, we passed Omaha and Lincoln really, really fast. After that, nothing. And then
No.
guess who was napping and guess who was driving? I was driving, and I'm like, dude, what am I
Yeah.
supposed to do for the next 6 hours while you're taking a snooze?
Yeah, you got the shaft on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, do you have any fun weekend plans this weekend?
Uh, Buddies from Drake are coming, actually. My girlfriend's best friend from school and her boyfriend. So him and I kind of became friends through them. So they're coming and spending the weekend here in Omaha. So we'll show them around. I think we might hit the zoo. The Omaha Zoo
Nice.
is pretty famous, I guess. Go out, get some drinks somewhere. So I'm looking forward to that. What about you, fellas?
Very.
You got anything going on?
I have a wedding on, or I'm not getting married. Monica, her friend, she's in a wedding, so we're gonna be there. I think down by Madison for the weekend. So
Have you had that situation where your significant other's in the wedding and you have to just go as like a guest, or
twice this year already. Yes,
that
this is
sucks?
the
Yeah.
third one, but she's had to do the same thing for me twice this year. We've had five. This will be five on Saturday. So
Damn.
yeah,
That's the
Dan, what
price you
about
pay
you?
for being
Yeah.
friends with people.
Yeah, I know. That's what I always joke. Like, God damn, I shouldn't have had so many friends. I keep going to those. I think five this year, six the year before, seven the year before that.
You got to start being an asshole like me.
Yeah.
Dan, what about you? Any weekend plans, buddy?
Actually, I'm going golfing, and it's going to be the first time I've been out this summer because work was so crazy all summer. So it's probably going to be a little ugly, but that's all right. So a little golf and just some relaxation. So
An ugly day of golf is better than a good day at work. So
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
just get out there, let the beers flow, and hit them straight.
I'm already planning on what I'm packing. So
Good, good.
Hey, so I gotta jump into. I gotta ask, Dave, what are you drinking tonight? Anything special?
Yeah, so it's in honor of you guys. I saved these in the back of the fridge since the last time I was in Wisconsin. I got some spotted cows.
Very
So spotted
nice.
cows, I put it in the football glass. So check that thing out.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you, fellas? What are you drinking?
Dan?
I mean, it's not Wednesday without Basil Hayden's.
That's right, baby.
Hazel
I don't
Hayes.
even I don't have any in my glass right now, but
I do. I
It's
do
on-
in my
it's on the
Packers
floor.
glass.
Are you sponsored by Basil Hayden's? Because
Well,
if you are, that's badass.
that's the
working on
idea.
it.
That's the idea, dude. Because it's been every show that a bottle of Basil Hayden's has been put on our podcast. So that'd be the idea at some point.
You guys big whiskey guys? Obviously.
I am, yeah.
Bourbon for me, yeah.
Bourbon.
I'm more of an Irish whiskey guy, but like, give me some bourbon, I'm in.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
you see, I'm not a whiskey or bourbon guy. I think I'm just kind of a you know what about it. It's always just like kind of drinking paint thinner for me. But I respect people that are, because it just looks cool, drinking whiskey or bourbon. But I was trying to think the other day. I wanted to get some whiskey or bourbon stocked at my apartment just because, like, for when people visit or whatever, I want to have some. I
Yep.
didn't know what to go for. I was thinking about the Basil Hayden's. You know what I don't like about Basil Hayden's? The label. I don't like the paper. I don't think it
Yeah.
looks as crispy or as clean as some other bottles. So I grab for the Maker's Mark. I like the Maker's Mark bottle.
That's a good one too. I have a bottle of that here.
Sorry, Basil Hayden's, if you sponsor the show in the future. You
They're
do
good.
have good. I've had it. It tastes good.
Yeah. Yep. So let's get into a little football here. I know you're not in our fantasy leagues, but I guess kind of going in, you said you're in multiple of them. So kind of give us a rundown on what kind of your strategy was going into the draft, or where they, and kind of give us a quick background. Are they redraft leagues? Are they dynasty leagues or keepers?
Yeah, so I'm in all redraft leagues. So two of my three leagues are very traditional, half point PPR. So my strategy going into those every year, I just kind of do the same thing. I go first three rounds, I go two running backs and a wide receiver. The reason I like to do that is because I think the running backs are thin. There's no depth in running backs, so I just like to snag them early, get the top heavy ones, and then there's always so many good receivers. I like to get at least one of the best premier guys, and then take whatever's available left later. Um, I guess like if you come to the fourth or fifth round and you got some stud, either quarterback or tight end available, I'll pick up on that. And I've had a lot of success lately doing that. I used to be strictly wide receiver, running back, and I'd get a quarterback late, I'd get a tight end late, and I said, screw it, I'll wait on those guys. I've found that you have a lot more success, at least I have, when you get one of those studs early. I've had Mark Andrews the last couple of years. I got Kelsey this year for the first time. It's paying dividends. And I realized that streaming a quarterback is much more difficult than just having a solid guy that's going to get you 20 to 25 a game.
Yep.
So that's kind of my draft strategy.
How you doing? How's your records going?
Pretty decent. What do we have? 5 weeks so far in
Yep.
my main league with my high school buddies that we've been doing for like 10 years. I am 4-1 and the one seed right now. So that's good to see. I think in my girlfriend's family league, I think 2-3, and I lost to my girlfriend this past week. So we don't talk about that league. We'll just talk about the one that I'm 4-1 in. And then I'm in a league that it's a really wild league. It's two quarterbacks, a super flex, so you can have three quarterbacks in your starting lineup at once.
Oh wow.
And then a regular flex, and then just traditional positions, and then individual defensive players. This is the
Yeah.
first time I've ever been in a league like that. It's been like 3 or 4 years now with this league, but I'm 3-2 in fifth place.
How do you like the defensive player thing?
I honestly love it. I like snagging like a player like right now I have Micah Parsons. I always get Bobby Wagner. He's good for freaking 8 to 10 tackles a game. I have Derwin James. I love like defensive guys. So picking individual players and supporting them, even if they're on a shitty defense, is a lot of fun for me.
Who are your quarterbacks in that 3 QB league?
Oh, dude, I was hoping you would not ask because it's not looking good so far.
Well,
I
you've got a winning record, so they've got to be decent.
I snagged Herbert was my first quarterback I picked. I got your boy Aaron Rodgers, who's excellent quarterback, very talented. I'm sure we'll get into it later, but not an amazing fantasy quarterback lately for some reason. Back to back MVPs, and he hasn't been like an incredible fantasy guy. So I have a little bit of regret there. And then I picked Fields. I thought Fields was going to have a good breakout year. That's been a shit show so far. And then I have Marcus Mariota just because I'm a homer. I love the Oregon Ducks. I thought his rushing attack could provide me some benefits. So that's who I got.
Yeah. Rodgers is actually my QB in our dynasty, and he is QB 19. So I feel the pain. Luckily, the rest of my team is disgustingly good, so I'm just coasting on that. But yeah, I'm with you. Not the best fantasy quarterback this season.
Yeah, he struggled a little bit, but we're hoping to see things go on the up and up, and maybe not get some wins. We hoping the Packers kind of tank, but maybe they just throw for 500 yards a game and a few touchdowns, and we'll see.
Well, it doesn't look like they want to run the ball consistently. Nick and I talk about it every Sunday.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is, man. They got the two-headed monster in the backfield, and I think they're leaning almost too much on Rodgers, and no one ever really thought they'd say that. But I think what makes Rodgers so special, and he's special in the first place, but what makes him additionally special lately, as he's getting older, is having that running attack. It's softening up the defenses a little bit. They're forced to kind of come in and crash, and then he's just having open receivers and being able to read the defense. So I think them going away from the run early and often is kind of causing some trouble for them.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys think the same thing, like as Packer fans and as you've been watching through the first 5 weeks?
Over the course of me rooting for the Packers, there's been a very glaring issue for the last 10, 11 years, and that's what's hindered us, I think, and that's the defense. I mean, we've had some obviously record-breaking offenses, going 15-1 that year. Rodgers winning 4 MVPs in the last 10 years, but that defense is really, really letting us down. And it's really unfortunate because we had a pretty good, that year that we won the Super Bowl in 2010, we had that we had a really, really good formula with a really, really stout defense. And I hate to bring up some poor memories of us kicking your ass in week 17 and in the NFC Championship down in Chicago to win that Super Bowl. But yeah, that year our defense was phenomenal. And I feel like kind of after that, it's just been and unfortunately it hasn't bode well for us in the playoffs since then.
Well, I mean, I have to argue a little bit because I think I agree with you for a majority of Rodgers' career and a majority of our livelihoods that the defense has been pretty shitty and Rodgers have had to make up for that. But what I saw out of the Packers last year was a pretty decent defense. And we saw it in the 49ers game. The defense produced. It was the special teams and the offense that kind of dropped the ball for you guys.
Yeah.
And that was rough to see. Not for me because I had $50 on 49ers money line, but it was a tragic thing to see. I think your special teams has really screwed you guys many, many times.
Oh
You
yeah.
think back to that
That's been...
Seahawks NFC Championship game, the special teams boned you. You think back to the 49ers game, special teams boned you. So they got to think more about things like that other than like just allowing Rodgers to be Rodgers. And I guess a question I have for you as a Bears fan, how upset are you at the GM or at Packers operations that they don't draft offensive guys early on in the draft to surround Aaron Rodgers? Because I know it pisses him off and it would piss me off if I were him.
I'm gonna let Dan lead off with this because he's an as offensive as it gets. So Dan.
Yeah, so I played QB for over a decade, but saying that though, Nick knows I was losing my mind when we were not running the ball. I don't understand why we don't run the ball more. I was telling Nick if there's a handful of quarterbacks that I'll never be mad if the coach puts the ball in their hand at the end of the game, right? 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 this last week. But I am also old school. You have AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. Give them the ball. You're going for it on 4 downs. You're going to get that yard twice. I would like to see them pound the rock more. And I think that's going to give us more continuity because when you run the ball and then throw it twice and you're 3 and out and you're punting, you can't get into a rhythm. But to your question, I have been so disgusted at the lack of offensive weapons that they've gone after. Minnesota went after Justin Jefferson. A decade ago, Atlanta went after Julio Jones. Those are the things that you have to do. And if we would have been drafting those kind of guys like the Jamar Chases, the Justin Jeffersons, the Julio Joneses in their primes, Aaron Rodgers has probably 6 or 7 MVPs and probably 3 or 4 Super Bowls. And I told Nick this last week. I am absolutely done with hearing how great our defense is because they're not. They're not a bottom tier defense, but they are not a great defense, especially when Jair's banged up. Rashawn Gary's looking better. Rasul is solid. I think Quay Walker has got a lot of potential, but I am tired of hearing how great our defense is because they're not really stopping anybody. When the Giants can score almost 30 on you, that's not a great defense.
Yeah, it's a fair argument. But I agree about the draft situation is like I think the Packers get in the mindset of like, well, shit, we have Aaron Rodgers. I mean, because he does a good job of making like these scrubs look like superstars. So they're like, well, let's just put scrubs around him that he'll make look like Pro Bowlers. Well, why don't you try putting Pro Bowlers around him and seeing what he can make those guys look like? It's like it's not rocket science. I mean, let's just see what happens. But and oftentimes, drafting running backs early is risky. Drafting wide receivers, a lot of the times it pans out. Those early draft pick wide receivers. Sometimes it might not, but that's why you take a few different shots and see what happens, see who sticks. And then think about having, some first round talent and then Jordy Nelson as like your 3rd or 4th guy. Like that's a team that I do not want to mess with. And I guess I'm glad as a Bears fan that they never went that route. They've been building the defense that you just mentioned over the past few years, and it's not panning out this year, at least to what we all thought before going into the season. I was, for one, terrified of the Packers defense entering the year. I was like, they're building up this defense. Like they were pretty decent last year. I don't know how you guys feel, but I thought they were decently stout, at least every game against the Bears, it seems. And going into this year, I thought that was going to be their strength. Doesn't seem to be the case so far. It's still early, but so far.
I like the players, but I don't think schematically, and I just don't think it fits what we're trying to do. being the offensive guy I am. I know Nick likes his linebackers and his DNs and stuff like that, but man, just give me the Chiefs, load up my offense, and let's just score 40 a game, and what happens happens.
I
All right,
agree.
Nick, what do you think? I know you are higher on the defense than I am.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to them using the like I guess they use a lot of first round picks on defensive players. I don't remember the last time they used a first round pick on an offensive player, and you could maybe go back to maybe you can throw this in our stat corrections, but maybe Derek Sherrod or Brian Balago. Is that the last time? Oh no. Oh, sorry. I know. Jordan Love. Okay. Well, but that doesn't count because you were not supposed to spend a first round pick on a backup fucking quarterback. But other than that, I'd spend I mean, I'm okay with the trying to build that defense, but it hasn't worked out this year. And I think if they finish in the bottom half, Joe Barry's going to have his head on a pike at the end of this year, because I don't really think you can blame the GM. I mean, the talent level that he has on the field. I mean, so something schematically is not working right now for them, and that's got to change. But I do wish that in all of those years we would have thrown a first rounder at a wide receiver or even a tight end. I don't care. I just like you said, it would have. It doesn't matter who Aaron Rodgers has. He's usually makes him look good. But if you have a guy that can go out there and produce day one, and who's already a stud, then teaming up with Rodgers, man, we could have done some serious damage there. So,
And I'm not a Goody fan at all, but you got to give it to Gutekunst and obviously Ted Thompson for the last 20, 25 years. Green Bay has sustained some really good teams, and we haven't sacrificed draft capital. Yes, arguably two of the top 10 best quarterbacks of all time helps. As a Packer fan, I'll take a winning record every year, but sometimes I just want to sell out and go for the Super Bowl. It's kind of like what the Brewers did with CC 10 years ago, and they sold the farm to get CC and made a run at the World Series. It didn't work out, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you get that buy-in from the fans too. Like, all right, they want it. They want it as bad as we want it. Like, let's go. And then, maybe you pay for it in a couple years to come. But you're right. The Packers have built good teams where you're not going to see like they're not the Houston Texans or the Chicago Bears where you're going to have like this dip in the franchise for 10, 15 years. I could see the Packers going all out one year and bouncing back within a year or two. So it would have been good, as a Packer fan to see them go after that. But I'm not complaining.
well, how about we jump into our into your team, but before we do that, we're gonna have our favorite segment. And I'm not sure if you peeked at some of our previous podcasts or not, but our favorite segment here on the Everyone Hates the Commissioner podcast is my sweet boy Obi, and he gets to pick the games. He's not doing too good. Through 5 weeks.
That might be a good sign, not to give it away, but it might be a good sign for Dave and his Bears this week.
Yeah, but before we do that, I want to before you play that, Dan, I thought it was really crazy. Dave, in our Pick'em League, have you ever seen a 0.5 spread, which is basically whoever wins is going to win that Pick'em selection? Have you ever seen only a 0.5 point on that ESPN Pick'em League before? I don't think I have.
Not usually, no. It's usually like at least 1.5. So to see
Right.
like almost a pick 'em there is kind of cool, I guess. But it's almost a slap in the face to the Bears. I was kind of preaching on this in my other podcast. But if we lose this week to the Commanders, I mean that really sucks.
Yeah.
Because if they were 5-point favorites and they ended up getting upset, that's one thing. But going in as like, hey, you're just as good as the Commanders. Like that is a swift kick to the balls. Yeah, at home with the orange jerseys and orange helmets. Like, come on, we should be at least 5-point favorites just for those alone.
All right.
And Nick and I have been talking about the alternate jerseys, which we're a big fan of.
Yep. And maybe we'll touch on that a little later. But let's see what Obi has to say about this Thursday night matchup, which is going to be tomorrow night. Welcome, everybody, to week 6 of Obi's Picks. We have a matchup this week between the Bears and the Washington Commanders. Should be a good game. Obi, you're not doing so good lately. Let's see what you can do this week. All right, let's see what we got. Come on. Oh, he's
Ah,
Commanders. He was really undecided. Obi picks Washington, everybody.
Obi, my boy, come on, have a little faith.
But Dave, this might work out. So you can see the paw of approval there. But Obi has not been picking very well, so that might be a good sign for your Bears.
That is a good sign. Oh yeah, Obi's ice cold, man.
Yeah, he is, and you know that it. I'm gonna give away one of my picks for tomorrow night, but I actually, before he even went and picked up that treat, I was telling myself, I know this is only basically an even game. I'm gonna pick the other team that Obi picks until he proves me wrong. So I'm gonna go with the Bears tomorrow night. I'm rooting for your Bears. Not that I want to root for them, but I think that they're gonna. I do think that they're gonna pull that one off.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a get right game for the Bears and Justin Fields. I think they've been pitter pattering around all season, throwing the ball 7 times a game. Like nothing will drive you more crazy than watching a whole football game and they throw it 7 times. Like, what are we running, the fucking wing T? Like,
Yeah.
what is this, Georgia Tech? Like Navy football? Come on, guys, throw the ball. You got you got a number 11 draft pick out of Ohio State. We threw it 50 times a game in college. Let the guy sling the ball around. So I'm hoping against the Commanders, that's what we do. But I could be proven wrong, and it could be just an embarrassing sight, but we'll see what happens.
It can't be any worse than last week.
That was a heartbreaker, man. That was a real heartbreaker.
So I have to say, Darnell Mooney, dude, that guy is legit. And that catch that he made this last week, I know that we're seeing these one-handed catches a lot more regularly than we had in the past, but that's up there towards the top, man. That was fucking sick what he did.
That was a badass catch. That's a nice feature to have with Darnell Mooney. Is he's very fast. He has good hands. Fields can kind of just throw it up to him. I love Darnell Mooney. I bought his jersey. I love him. But if you look at Darnell Mooney, I wouldn't necessarily say he's like a number one wide receiver. I think the way that he could have the most success is as like a number two guy. And he had a lot of success last year, over 1,000 yards, with Allen Robinson being the quote unquote main target, even though we did not throw him the ball much last year. But the point is, with a lot of emphasis going away from Darnell Mooney, is when he can really shine. Now, with all the emphasis on Darnell Mooney and not passing more than 10 times a game, it's been hard for him to have any success. So it's good to see him have those catches like that to give him some shine because he deserves it.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% that, but you about that statement, but you could say that about any wide receiver. Maybe besides Justin Jefferson, but I want to give some credit to we lost Dan. I want to give some credit to the Minnesota Vikings head coach because he's doing a lot of really, really good things in game planning on getting Jefferson open, because I think it's very, very obvious that Justin Jefferson right now is a top 2 or 3 wide receiver in the entire league, and he's still running around wide open and getting not only is he getting catches, but he's getting a ton of yards too. So besides him, I think you could say that about any situation, any offense. So when you have a really, really good receiver and maybe the supporting cast isn't as good, which I think is really, really fair to say that the supporting cast in Chicago is less than good. But then they can put more, defenses can watch him a little bit more, and then it's gonna be harder for him to get open. It's kind of what we're seeing right now in Green Bay, without really having a legit number one. We're seeing that with Allen Lazard. You could say that a little bit about the Bengals, but I think there's a lot more going on with the Bengals than they're trying to give Jamar the ball, but I'm gonna chalk that up to poor coaching on not getting him in the right spots, like Minnesota's coach is getting Justin Jefferson in the right spots, which is really impressive. Yeah. So, but hey, Justin Fields, I wanted to touch on that because let's talk a little Bears talk. I want to hear your opinion because you're a true Bears fan. You're the only one in our league. So I want to talk a little bit about these guys, but until proven otherwise, I will probably, I do not believe in Justin Fields or any other Ohio State quarterback until one proves me wrong in the NFL, because so far, Would you like to know what the most successful quarterback that's come out of Ohio State ever?
I'm counting
I don't
Joe
know what his
Burrow.
name is. Huh?
I'm counting Joe Burrow.
Oh, really?
No,
No, you
I
can't
guess
do that.
you got to go almost Cardell Jones. I don't know. They haven't had much
No,
luck.
no. So the longest tenured Ohio State quarterback to play in the NFL, the only reason he
Terrell
played about
Pryor as a receiver.
That was my
yes,
guess when he asked.
no, that is he's probably the second longest tenured Ohio State quarterback, and he didn't play quarterback. But you want to know what the longest tenured one? I don't know his name because it happened in the 50s or 60s. But the only reason he played 10 or 11 years is because they converted him over to punter, David, to punter. All right. Until an Ohio State quarterback comes in and proves me wrong in the NFL that has a career as quarterback, I just can't believe in these Ohio State QBs.
What the hell is the problem? I mean, they're playing well at Ohio State. They're
Yeah.
running. I mean, obviously they're running a spread offense more so, which is maybe doesn't translate as well to the NFL. But lately the NFL is becoming more of a passing league, and it's more of a
Yep.
spread offensive league and the attack league, and they're shining on Ohio State and against Big Ten defenses, which they're nothing to scoff at. I mean, look at Iowa. Iowa blows, but their defense is really good, and Ohio State torches teams like that year in and year out, and their quarterbacks are throwing like 500 plus yards a game. They're Heisman candidates. They're going to the playoffs like consistently, and then they go to the NFL and they're just nobodies.
Yeah.
So
I think personally Ryan Day is doing a better job of prepping them for the NFL because we've seen so many top college quarterbacks, Vince Young, Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow. That game does not translate to the pros. I think Ryan Day, even though I'm not a Buckeyes fan, can't stand him. Um, but I think he's doing a better job now with those guys like Fields and obviously CJ Stroud coming in the league next year. I think they're going to have a better opportunity to succeed if they get in the right opportunity with the right coaching staff. I wasn't super high on Fields. Um, Obviously, coming from Ohio State and getting drafted by the Bears, he's not on my top 5 favorites list. But I think he's got a lot of talent. But I think Ryan Day is going to do a better job of getting those guys more prepared than the batch from the '90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, and Dave, like you said, you might be right now that the NFL is kind of transitioning over to this option, not option, but more of a read option, kind of these RPOs and spreading things out that maybe they will start. It's not your classic two receivers, tight end, up tight, fullback, running back anymore. It's a lot more spread out, and maybe that will translate better and help these more athletic quarterbacks coming out of Ohio State in the near future. But again, until I'm proven otherwise, I'm
and
out.
I can't blame you, but I think one of the other problems is these quarterbacks are playing. If you watch Ohio State games, you know until they get to the playoff, their players that they have on their team, like their skill players, are head and shoulders better than anybody else.
Oh yeah,
And while these
absolutely.
defenses are decent and like I said, nothing to scoff at, these wide receivers are like absolute studs. They usually have a really solid running back. Their offensive line is big and solid. They have good offensive scheme, and these players can thrive in this offense. And then they go translate to the NFL, and they're a top first round pick or a top 10 pick to a team that's not set up for them yet. They maybe don't have the offensive scheme that fits them well. I mean, look at Justin Fields. I think if you put Fields, and I believe this because I believe in Fields, if you put him on say let's say the Packers offense, or if you put him on the Chiefs, or if you put him on the Buccaneers, I think he has a lot of success because he slings the ball around, he has the arm talent. I think he's smart. I think he's a smart guy. But you put him on the Bears and you pass it 7 times a game, he can't get in any sort of groove. He's going to struggle. So I mean, I don't really blame Justin Fields. I'm being patient with it. I'm hoping that maybe they bring in a more offensive mind. Maybe they let him go a little bit. Um, I was scrolling the old Twitter last night and I saw some clip that made me feel even better about Justin Fields. It was Trent Dilfer, who obviously we know was not a very successful quarterback himself, but he has led this Elite 11 group for now, I don't know, 20 years or whatever it might be. And he grooms these really successful quarterbacks. They don't all pan out, but he said he believes in Fields, but he said his partner in this whole the Elite 11 scheme uh, is more confident in Justin Fields than anyone he's ever seen. He is his number one quarterback he's seen in all their years of doing the Elite 11. And he would put his life on him being a successful quarterback. So that makes you feel pretty good going into it. Like, no one's going to be bullshitting you about that. Like, they're going to they're going to put their name out there and puff their chest out for a guy. Like, you have to believe in
Yeah.
And I'm fully in the camp of, yeah, you want to protect those guys and you want to bring them, along in the right, step by step, the right time. But being a quarterback, you just got to let these guys loose. Justin Fields is not a guy that you got to like, all right, let's have a very basic offense because he is a smart guy, right? But he's also extremely athletic. So knock the training wheels off. You know you're not competing this year. Let the guy go get some reps. Let him make some mistakes, but throw some complicated offensive schemes at him. Let him learn with a pretty young crew around him, and let him learn by doing it and rely on his athleticism. Let him just go make some backyard plays. That's the thing that drives me nuts with these rookie quarterbacks. You don't know where they are until you just let them loose. Like Kenny Pickett, I've been crying for the Steelers to let him loose. Yeah, it's been a little rough, but you can see the potential that he's got. I think Fields has glimpses of potential, and I just feel like they're constantly trying to rein him back in. Just let him go and let him make some mistakes and let him learn. I think that's the only way that he's going to be an elite quarterback in the next 2 to 3 years.
You don't see, I love that, but I love that point out of you because you don't see, you rewind a couple years and watch the Chiefs, like with Pat Mahomes coming up. You don't see Andy Reid grabbing Pat Mahomes by the shoulder pads and being like, what are you throwing sidearm running out of the pocket for? He's like, good play, smacks him on the ass, and you go about his business. Like,
Yeah.
these guys don't all have to be Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, where they sit in the pocket, they adjust, they call audibles, they read the defense, they watch a million hours of film, and they pick them apart like a surgeon. These quarterbacks need to come in and play comfortable. Like you said, you need to let these quarterbacks be them, let them be what has made them so successful so far, and they're not letting them do that. You even saw the same thing with Mitch Trubisky, and he was, I think, maybe a tenth of the talent that Justin Fields is. But my point is, they're trying to make Trubisky and Fields and these guys be someone that they're not. Just let them come in, let them play loose, let them throw the ball downfield. Mistakes are going to happen, but that's how you learn. Like, oh shit, I threw it downfield to double coverage to Darnell Mooney and it got picked off. Maybe I should look underneath and check down next time. Like, if you just always check down, you're not going to know what's on the other side. The grass is never going to be greener because you won't even know the taste of that. So you got to let guys go in. Look at Peyton Manning. He led the league in interceptions, didn't he, his rookie year?
Yes.
And he ended up becoming, like, he figured things out. He's like, well, apparently you can't throw across the middle when there's a linebacker dropping back and a safety coming in. He learns that. And then he finds the zones and finds the gaps. If they don't test those things out, it's never going to happen.
Right.
Yep.
And do it now while you're young and while he's still figuring it out, Look at Josh Allen. Josh Allen, everybody was saying after 2 years, oh, he's a bust. Now look at him. He's a one-man wrecking crew. I'm not saying Justin Fields is Josh Allen, but you got to take the training wheels off at some point. And I think right now is as good a time as ever.
Yep.
100% agree.
Any other thoughts on the Bears, Dave, that you want to share? Anything else maybe besides Justin Fields' defense? How you feel with the defense?
I don't feel great about the defense. What I feel good about is overall team morale. I think that Vikings game, I was watching the first half and you were just getting pissed on, just getting dominated by the Vikings early. And it felt a lot like that. I think it was Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football against the Packers a few years ago. And it's like 42-0 at half. And that team had no hope. And I was going into halftime thinking, here we go again, deja vu. But the Bears came back out of the second half and they fought back. I don't know if that's Matt Eberflus, instilling some confidence in them, changing scheme up, the players, the leaders on the team, like a Justin Fields and a Roquan Smith, kind of grabbing people and being like, hey, we can get back in this game. I love the fight that the Bears showed. I'm hoping that translates into more wins down the road in those closer games. Hopefully we cut Amir Smith-Marset, never to let him touch the ball again. That's a good starting point. But yeah, you know what? We've had enough talk about the Bears. They, I think, are one of the worst teams in the league right now, roster wise. So I'm hoping that the future is bright, but right now it's a little gloomy.
So I'm curious. I asked Nick this last week. Nick, I know you have this on your notes. So I want to ask you specifically around the Bears because we know the Bears next year have the most cap space available out of any team in the NFL by a mile, I believe. So put yourself in a GM shoes. How would you build a team? Like, it doesn't have to be the Bears. It could just be a generic team. What positions are you building around and how are you trying to scheme? And then a follow-up to that, what do you think the Bears need to look at next year in the draft and specifically around free agency with all that cap space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you look at the Bears, they're paying, I think, 5 or 6 dudes the most amount of money on the team, and none of them are on the team. So it's tough to see that. That's a tough pill to swallow. But I think if I were a GM building a team, whether that's the Bears or not, I kind of thought about this. I'd put together a defense first. I don't know if I need to wait for Dan to get back on or if he can hear me,
No,
but
no.
I
Yeah,
put
I'm
a
there. I just turned the video off quick.
okay, no problem. I put together a defense. I think you allow those defensive players to kind of grow together to kind of build that camaraderie. I think communication on defense is really crucial. You see it kind of with the Packers. They're a young defense, so they're maybe struggling with that cohesive unit type scheme right now with communicating and knowing where your buddies are at the same time. So I think seeing a defense come together like a la the Baltimore Ravens back when they were in the Super Bowl against the Niners, the 49ers when they were in the Super Bowl against the Ravens. These are teams with like real pros on the defense that have played in the league for many, many years. Build that defense first. Then I like bringing in the offensive line, allow those guys to build some camaraderie and get some experience as well. A lot of the times, these really solid offensive linemen are in like the middle ground, right? They're not rookies, but they're not super old vets either. They're kind of in the middle. So I like to build that offensive line. Then I like to get some skill players, let them kind of learn the ropes, but also have some early athleticism. Then I like adding a quarterback in there to allow the quarterback to be young, a little bit ignorant, and be able to kind of grow a little bit, and also have that young athleticism to bring to the team and the new face, but allow him to kind of grow with that team. And then lastly, you bring in a running back. I think it's okay to bring in like a rookie or something and still have a really successful team. I don't think you need to have like an Ezekiel Elliott, one of these more established running backs in today's game. And you see it. A lot of teams don't want to pay those veteran running backs. And never, ever forget a solid kicker. Shout out Cody Parkey. He, when you asked this question kind of before I came on this podcast, I was really thinking about it. The first thing that popped into my head was the 2018 Bears. I think they're actually a really well put together team, a really solid roster. And you know what screwed us in the end? Not having a kicker ready for the moment and ready to get that job done. So never, ever forget a solid kicker. Look at Justin Tucker. He's like, obviously, I would say the best kicker in the league. He is such a weapon. Like you have to basically get past the 50-yard line and you basically have an automatic 3 points, worst case scenario. So building your team around a solid kicker is never a bad idea.
It's a very good point. Yeah, that guy's incredible. I know you said he's best kicker in the NFL right now. I think it's pretty fair to say he might be the best kicker of all time at this point, and he's still got some solid years ahead of him. If not, I mean, I think he's about 30, 31. He probably got maybe 10 more years for all we know. But anything else you guys think about? Any points you want to make about the NFC North besides the Packers and Bears? Anything you want to bring up about the Lions and the Vikings at all?
Have both of you guys watched Hard Knocks?
Yes.
I do not have HBO. I did not watch Hard
Okay.
Knocks.
Because like watching the Detroit, and I'm Dave, you didn't know this about me, but I used to root for the Lions growing up behind the Packers. Barry Sanders was my favorite player growing up. I'm that old. And then Calvin Johnson was my favorite player. So I've always rooted for the Lions because they're that team that they're never going to win. So why not root for them? You know, it's like the Cubs. I used to root for the Cubs. And then once they won a World Series, I was like, well, screw them. I'm not rooting for them anymore.
It's old news.
Um,
Yeah.
but I love MCDC, Motor City Dan Campbell. And I know he's been getting roasted by media for the decisions. But watching Hard Knocks, and Nick, I want to hear your insight on this. I am big on building culture. And man, it takes a lot to turn around a franchise like Detroit that's been in the garbage pile for so long. He might not be the best head coach. He's definitely not a Bill Belichick. But man, when you want to talk about building a culture, that guy is all about it. Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Dan Campbell, I think his energy, his excitement, you can see that he truly, I mean, especially on Hard Knocks, you could see that he truly loves those players, and that those guys really play hard for him. And like you said about the culture thing, that's spot on. I think that's really, really important, because you can see how some cultures in some teams and their cultures that are not that good, and how things pan out. Prime example is maybe Urban Meyer down in Jacksonville last year. That was awful. I mean, he was in the news from day one from kicking the kickers every time they missed a kick. I mean, what the fuck? Don't do that. I mean, it's just, but I agree. He's doing a good job, and I think they have a bright future. The Vikings, for me, they're going to be a tough out this year. They're a solid team, and like I said, I was giving, not that I enjoy this, but I do give that coach some serious props in his first year, because he's doing some really good things. He's making has a really creative game plan, and getting, like I said, one of the best receivers in the league open all the time. And they're going to be good. And I don't really like seeing Zadarius on the opposing team anymore. Because that guy is still a monster down on that, especially anywhere on that defensive line. So, yeah. But what do you got? Anything else?
That Vikings defensive front is terrifying. I don't know how
Yeah.
you guys feel, but man, they got some players. They got some guys that are some mean dudes, and they're going to come hard and every single down. So that's always terrifying to see. I would never ever, after watching the Packers week 1 against the Vikings and after watching the Bears last week, especially in the first half, I would never play a zone against those wide receivers. And Kirk Cousins is going to Kirk Cousins eventually, but if you play a zone, they're going to find the soft spots. And like you said, O'Connell's been doing a good job of that. Kirk Cousins does a decent job of that as long as it's not prime time. And Justin Jefferson finds his way to get open. He's agile, he's fast, he has great hands. And I'm watching this Bears game. He's wide open every play.
Yep.
I'm like, I understand with Jalen Johnson injured, who's like our number one cornerback lately. Having him injured, you can't really man up. But if you're going to play zone, you got to at least have like some sort of spy on him, like as a safety or something, because letting this guy run free is just a recipe for disaster.
Well, and what D coordinators are trying to go more to zone, because to Nick's point, O'Connell's really good about moving Jefferson around. Like, we just paid Jair $1 billion, but you can't man Jefferson up when he's going and playing all 4 X, Y, H, and Z spots. Like, you can't follow him all around the field. So teams are trying to go zone, but I agree. I loved when teams played me in zone. I played shotgun straight no huddle spread for a decade. I loved it when teams played zone. Somebody's open every time. When you get these NFL quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins, everyone wants to knock him, but that guy will shred you apart. If you give him time and give him weapons against his own defense, he's going to pick you apart all day long.
And he's got the run game that you have to be worried about too, with Dalvin Cook and even Alexander Madison is a decent running back too. So they always have that threat present. So you can't just like sell out on the pass game, drop everybody back. You have to commit to the run as well.
Yeah. And I've said before, I think the Eagles are the most well-rounded team in the NFL, but I think the Vikings might be they're nipping at the heels there. They got a really solid roster. But well, before we get into some more NFL talk, I think we should maybe dive into those predictions this week. So I'm really curious to see what Dave, what you have for some locks and upsets. Let's see here, Dan. Well, Dave, why don't you start off with your lock?
What do you want to go predictions, or do you want to go fantasy players last week, Wayno? Nick, I just called you Wayne.
Yep, you're right. Let's do players of the week first, and then we'll do our lock and upset.
All right, cool.
Wayno,
right.
Wayne is our cousin.
I don't know why I just called you Wayno. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so my player of the week for last week, right? Is that what you guys are talking about?
Yep.
My player of the week from last week is Tyler Lockett. I have him in one of my leagues. He was a guy that was going against a Saints defense that has been pretty weak so far. They do have Marcus Lattimore, as we know, but I figured he would be focused on DK Metcalf. So I thought Tyler Lockett would find some holes, find some gaps, maybe put together a good game as far as like volume. But he put together a great game with scores. He had 2 long touchdowns. Geno Smith has been slinging the ball around, so he did even better than I expected. But that was my player of the week from week 5.
And for our viewers, this is not a redo of last week, because we actually had a Seattle Seahawk last week with Rashad Penny. And I promise, guys, this is not a typo. Nick, did you pick a repeat player for last week?
How can I not? I'm going with Josh Jacobs 2 weeks in a row. Not only did he have a hell of a week in week 4, but he just broke his own career record in rushing yards. He had a hell of a game on Monday night against the Chiefs, especially because they were up early. And I brought it up in last week that he may be one of the best closers in the game. Such a tough runner, so hard to bring down. And they were up for a majority of that game, so he was doing a fantastic job. And yeah, I got to give him some kudos. And he's on my team, and we're running a good stretch here. Oh, I did not week 3, I didn't, but got 4 four of Nick's players on his fantasy team on the players of the week. So Dave, who do you got for week 6? Who do you think is gonna have a good week?
Yeah, week 6, I really have a lot of faith in Ramondre Stevenson. He's going into the week with fully healthy. You have a banged up Damian Harris who's questionable. He went from doubtful to questionable today, but even if he plays, I think he's going to be banged up. And Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is going to reap the benefits. You saw him have an excellent week last week when Damian Harris went out early. They play Cleveland, who's been a pretty soft defense so far, from what we've seen, especially in the running pass game. So getting Ramondre Stevenson out in the open field, dumping off to him, I think they're going to have a weak back end of the defense, and Ramondre Stevenson's going to have a pretty strong game.
Yeah,
and Nick, this is perfect timing because Nick is not a homer when it comes to these. He's selfish when it comes to his own fantasy players of the week on his own team. But this is great that Dave is on this week because Nick, who are you picking for a breakout week this week?
Justin Fields?
Well, sorry, buddy. I think this is going to be a get right game for our Green Bay Packers, and I think this is the week that Aaron Rodgers he is going to bust out. He's going to have over 300 yards passing and at least 2 touchdowns to 3. I mean, I think they're gonna emphasize running the football, but I think this is one of those get right games for the Packers, and I think it starts with number 12 this week. So
I agree. I think a lot of people are talking about how hot the Jets are right now. I think the Jets are up and coming, but I think this is a prove it week for Green Bay coming back to Lambeau. And I think they know this is a pretty important win to not fall too far behind Minnesota already this early in the season. I'm with you, Nick. I still want to see the ball being run, but I think Rodgers might have a big game this week.
Yeah. So, Dave, we're gonna dive into some locks and upsets right away while we're at predictions. Who you got this week for a lock?
Yeah, my favorite this week to just win and not only win but dominate is the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers I've seen anywhere from -7.5 to -8.5, but I love them just crushing the Steelers this week. The Steelers, they need to have a bounce back game where they compete. Mike Tomlin will do his best to get the boys ready, but I think the Buccaneers need to come in and really punch them in the teeth and just knock them out early and often. You saw the Buccaneers do that last week against the Falcons, and then they kind of petered off towards the end. So they need to come in, hit them in the mouth, and keep hitting them mouth over and over and over. And I think that they learned their lesson from last week. I'm thinking that they crushed the Steelers this week.
Yeah, I'm on board with you there. It probably would have been mine if had you not taken them. But I believe, yeah, that was tough. I mean, hey, but you got to say it. You picking your Buccaneers. They played your pesky Falcons last week, and I know that you love the Falcons because of Marcus Mariota, and he has been playing pretty well, but they've been hanging in there tough. So you never know, even though that the Steelers may not be the best team and they might give them a run for their money. The Buccaneers didn't look too great against the bottom of the barrel team last week. So, but I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Rams. I'm not entirely sure if they're going to cover that 10.5 points, but they're going up against a very, very bad team in Carolina. They just fired their head coach. Baker Mayfield is out. I don't know if they're starting Matt Corral or who they're starting.
I want to say PJ Walker is starting. Yeah, I think Sam
PJ.
Darnold's out as well.
Oh, damn.
Matt Corral's out for the year.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I think that's going to be kind of a shit show down in. I'm not really sure where they're playing, but that's going to be a shit show for the Panthers this week. So I see you have the Patriots as an upset. What are you thinking there?
Let me divert real quick though. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is there anything more disappointing than how sexy the Panthers jerseys are and how shitty they are as a team? Like
Yes.
it was kind of the Dolphins the last few years, they got such awesome jerseys and they just blow. So you want to see a team like that with those sexy baby blues come out and just ball out and those alternate blacks. But man, they have sucked lately ever since Cam Newton used to dominate back there. So I'm hoping that the Panthers figure it out. I thought Baker might have been the answer, but certainly not so far.
Yeah. As long as McCaffrey gets his 20 to 25 touches a game, I don't care.
Did you hear he's on the trade block?
Yeah, but he was last year, and the thing is, there's no trade that makes sense for Christian McCaffrey. because no team has that in their cap space. But also, why would Carolina give him away to get a mid round pick? So I think he's going to stay only because I think it's going to be hard for them to find a trade that makes sense.
Agreed. It's going to be hard for them to get back the value that he brings to the team because, he is the diamond amongst a pile of shit right now
Because
on the
I was
Carolina
actually
Panthers.
talking with my coworkers about this today. What's the one team that you would love to see Christian McCaffrey go to that would make sense that needs a running back or could use a running back?
Definitely the Chicago Bears. No, I'm just
Stop
kidding.
it. Stop it.
I would love to see that, but no, I don't think that's the case. I don't know, man. That's a tough question. Maybe the Eagles.
How
To
how about this team?
No,
What do you think about Go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say this would be absolutely disgusting, and I don't think that they have the cap space either. But I could easily see the Kansas City Chiefs throwing some draft picks and sending them that way just to throw. I mean, you were talking about offense, man. Would that not be just disgusting
It
if the Eagles
would,
out
but
there?
with all the talent they have in their style of offense, I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
No, all right.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to see it in a fantasy world. I just don't think in real world that would happen. But how about what do you guys think about the San Francisco 49ers who
Mm,
want to run the ball? They've been dealing with running back injury. Combine him with the versatility of Kittle and Debo with arguably the NFL's best defense. That would be a nasty situation.
yep.
That would.
Yeah,
That
it
would.
would.
The first team that popped into my head was the Eagles. The Eagles have had kind of the average running backs for since Westbrook, was a running back over there. It feels like, or LaShawn McCoy maybe was more recently than that, but to have that team that is already kind of blowing teams out of the water. They're showing their Bowl contenders. Does a team like Philadelphia go all in on a guy like Christian McCaffrey? Do they trade him to an NFC team like the 49ers or the Eagles? Who knows? I don't hate your analysis that they probably end up will keeping him anyways, but it's fun to think about guys like that going to
Yeah.
different teams. So
And again, since he's on my dynasty team, as long as he's getting 20-25 touches, I don't care.
yeah, it doesn't matter what team he's on. If he's getting that amount of volume, he's going to perform and produce.
He's
So
shown that he's quarterback proof because Baker is clearly not a good quarterback for a winning franchise, but he's clearly quarterback proof at this point.
Mm-hmm.
agreed.
So,
Okay. Sorry, Nick. I ran away
all
from
right.
your question about
That's all right.
15, 20 minutes ago. I loved I was looking at, what underdog I love this week. And I know it's kind of a close spread, so it's kind of a lame pick, but I like the Patriots this week. They're on the road at Cleveland. We hinted at Baker Mayfield's old team, the Cleveland Browns, but they have been, kind of puttering as of late. I haven't been very impressed with the Browns. I think that the Browns will be more competitive once they get Deshaun Watson in there. I like Jacoby Brissett. I think he's a serviceable quarterback for now, but I don't think he's enough to put them over the edge. And I think the Patriots have been hot. They have confidence. They have Bill Belichick. So I think the Patriots go to Cleveland and they win outright this week.
Not a bad pick. I'm gonna go with this might be a hot take here, but I think the Dallas Cowboys with Cooper Rush are gonna go and are they playing? No, they're going into Philly. I thought they were going into the New York for a second. They're going into Philly and I think they're gonna beat the Eagles. I think this is where the undefeated is done, and that defense, man, that Dallas has put together down there is fantastic. So actually, now that this is a question that I wanted to ask you, and I didn't want to prep you for this one, Dave. Actually, both of you, I would like to hear your response here. So, talking about defense, who is right now your favorite defensive player in the NFL to watch currently?
You want me to go, Dan, or do you want to go first?
You can go. I'm going to think about it.
I think my favorite defensive player to watch, and I mentioned him earlier, I picked him on my individual draft league players. Derwin James, the San Diego Chargers, the LA Chargers. Now, I'm sorry, I like San Diego Chargers better, but I love Derwin James. He's a guy that goes out there just oozing with confidence, just dripping out of, dressed to the nines. He balls out, he dominates, he goes out there, just has fun. He gets interceptions, forces fumbles, drills running backs, gets sacks in the backfield. I love Derwin James. I love his confidence. I love his swagger.
Man, I'm trying to dig and look, and I'm such an offensive guy. I'm so boring. I mean, you could say Aaron Donald. Can't stand Jalen Ramsey, but the guy is shut down. I'm all about the sack lunch. So, JJ Watt, TJ Watt being a homer there. That's exciting. Obviously, JJ's past prime and TJ's hurt, but those guys you mentioned, you have Micah Parsons. I am not a Cowboys fan at all, but man, Micah Parsons is a fun guy to watch. He's so versatile. He's got the coverage speed, he's got the pass rush speed, he's got the strength. If he wasn't on Dallas, I would probably be more of a fan. So I would probably say Micah Parsons. I know that's kind of an easy out, but I think he's kind of the future of the league from the defensive side of the ball. What about you, Nick?
Well, that's now you just kind of it just made things a little tougher for me because
All
that's
right.
who I was going to take. I was going to go with
All right.
Michael
I'll say
Parsons.
TJ Watt when healthy then. How's that?
Well, that was going to be my backup. So yeah, TJ Watt. I mean, we just talked about Micah, and like you said, he's fast as hell. He's a home wrecker back in the backfield. But TJ Watt is on a whole nother level, and he was at the start of this year. It's too bad that he got banged up again. I mean, those Watt boys, they give it the they balls to the wall every effing play, man.
How about you follow suit too? I love watching Myles Garrett play.
Oh
Watching those
yes.
like defensive ends and edge rushers that just like have, their head and shoulders more athletic, faster, stronger than everyone else. Like, it's not quite the same nowadays, but like a Khalil Mack a couple of years ago, like you guys had to admit that you were probably a little scared going into Bears games because of
Yep.
him alone. And like he was just a dominant force. That first game when he came on the Bears, I know it didn't end well for the Bears, and you guys probably had to have something to say about that, I'm sure. But having him go in there to Lambeau and like get some strip sacks, and just bat down balls and just show his presence right away is just such a good feeling. Like watching those defensive ends just dominate.
Yeah, especially at the Chargers having those bookend defensive ends. I'm curious because we haven't talked a lot of Chargers this year, Nick. Like, do you guys still believe in the Chargers, or are you kind of like figuring like what's going on with that team? Because going in the season, I told Nick I thought the two best teams in the league were Kansas City, or excuse me, Buffalo and the Chargers, and they obviously have not been performing that well. So, what are your guys' thoughts on the Chargers for the rest of the season?
Well, I'm sure Dave's probably been paying a little closer attention than I have because that's his boy over there in Los Angeles. That's his Oregon Duck over there. But I think that I don't know, they have a first year head coach this year, or is this a second year,
It's
Staley?
the second year, I believe.
Second year. I
Yep.
don't know. I feel maybe it's just kind of they're going through some growing pains yet. They have a ton of talent. They added some defense, bringing in Khalil Mack. I just think they're just kind of going through some injuries and so just through a tough stretch. I still believe that they're gonna. I don't know if I don't see them winning the AFC West. I think the Chiefs are too good, but I think they're gonna lock up that second spot over there and a wild card spot by the end of the year.
Yeah, I would have to say I like this question because my second favorite team in the league to watch and support is the Chargers. I would say that's for a few different reasons. Number one, Justin Herbert. Number two, their sexy jerseys and colors. Number three, because of some other those other guys on their team. I mentioned Derwin James, Khalil Mack. They added some big pieces this offseason with like J.C. Jackson at corner, who is a dominant force in New England. Kyle Van Noy, who's been a pretty good linebacker in the NFL for a long time now. They have those offensive weapons. What I would attribute to them struggling so far has got to be injuries. They haven't been healthy. They have the talent, like you said, Nick, but those guys have not been out there for them. You look at a J.C. Jackson, he sat out the first game, I think maybe the first two. You look at Corey Linsley, their offensive lineman, who's an All-Pro lineman, I think from the Packers.
Yes.
He's been out. He's out all year, I believe. Their left tackle, I'm blanking on the name. He came from Northwestern. He was a rookie last year, an All
Slater.
Pro. Slater, thank you. As a rookie, he was an All Pro. He's out for the rest of the year. Austin Eckler's been a little banged up. Obviously, Keenan Allen, their key number one wide receiver, he's been out pretty much all year. So for a guy like me that has Herbert in two different fantasy leagues, it sucks to see like them struggle and kind of skid up front when I thought they were gonna come in guns a blazing, kind of like you thought, Dan. But I believe in the Chargers going forward. I think I think they're going to figure this stuff out with the injuries. Those guys that are filling in the gaps for those injured players will hopefully start to get that experience and start to figure it out.
I got a follow up for that. So I told Nick I have an experiment, and it's a quick question, and I wanted to put you guys on the spot, and I'll tell you why I think you answered the way you did, and it's just an experiment to see if I'm right or wrong. right now. So not what you thought preseason and not what you think could happen at the end of the season, but right now in week 6, Nick, who are your top 5 teams in the NFL?
I'm gonna go with Philadelphia, Buffalo, Kansas City, Dallas, and it pains me to say this again, but Minnesota.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, that's tough. I go Buffalo, no doubt. Kansas City, Green Bay, believe it or not,
No.
the Eagles, and the Buccaneers. These are teams. There's some in there, Buccaneers, Packers that are struggling and skidding a little bit up front. But I think the way that I look at these teams, these are teams that I believe in. Maybe right now, but most definitely going forward. I know that didn't answer your question quite perfectly. If I had to answer your question more accurately, I'd substitute the Packers for, you hinted at it, Dallas. I think Dallas has been really solid. And I'm struggling to find a fifth on the spot, but some of those teams that we expected to be great up front, they've really struggled early on. So it's going to be interesting to see if these teams can hold pack or if they're going to continue to struggle.
All right. So my experiment was not really what I thought it would be. It kind of was. I was thinking you guys were going to maybe throw Baltimore in there. I know Baltimore struggled last week. They haven't been real convincing, but if you look at the top teams right now, typically dual threat quarterbacks. And I say that because you're on the show this week. You got Justin Fields, who's a dual threat. I just think the future of the league is that dual threat quarterback. You watch these games with quarterbacks who are immobile, they limit their offenses so much, and it makes it so much easier for defenses to scheme when you have guys like Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen who can beat you every way. It makes it so difficult to defend that. So that was my quick experiment. But
Well,
you guys have Tampa old man Brady, who's agile but not a dual threat, and Dallas. Cooper Rush is not going to be that dual threat. But obviously, Philly, Buffalo, KC, those teams. Obviously Baltimore's up there. The Chargers could be up there, right? Those dual threat quarterbacks. I just think they bring those good teams to another level.
You know what? I'm a big quarterback guy too. I was never a successful quarterback, but I've always been a quarterback growing up too. So I love watching good quarterback play. And the teams that I picked have solid quarterbacks. Maybe not as mobile. Aaron Rodgers, he can be a little mobile. He's getting older, but Tom Brady, obviously, we know is not mobile. But look at the Bills, Josh Allen, Chiefs, Pat Mahomes, Packers, Aaron Rodgers, Eagles, Jalen Hurts, who's I'm still not on the Jalen Hurts bandwagon. That's a discussion for another day. But I think he's been solid and he's been performing well this year so far. And then the Buccaneers with Tom Brady. So I definitely think we're obviously in a quarterback league. And if you don't have one of those top tier quarterbacks, I don't think you're going to make a run.
And that's why Minnesota will not win the Super Bowl.
And the 49ers, like you look at teams like that are like so close, but you have these guys that I don't think are enough to push them over the edge.
But don't you think that's why they went after Trey Lance?
I do. I think that was their effort. I think they knew that they have Garoppolo, who is enough to be serviceable, a la Jacoby Brissett. But are those guys enough to bring you a Super Bowl? Hell no, in my opinion. So I think they tried to take a shot at Trey Lance. Still TBD on that. We'll see what happens. I think hopefully you see him kind of take this injury in stride and not only work on himself physically to get back, but work on the mental side of things. He needs to come back and be sharp. He needs to come back and be ready to slow the game down and pick defenses apart. And I think he'll have a huge advantage because he is an athlete and he has a strong arm. So if he can get the mental side of things figured out, I think that's going to help them and the 49ers.
Nick, do you want to do some would you rather here?
Yeah, just real quick, I'm gonna stay out of this one, but I'm gonna let Dave. I have one more question for him. This is that I want him to be prepared for. So I will give me 3 NFL quarterbacks, past or present, that you either disliked or disliked watching, and then a brief explanation on why.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. Can I list off 5 because I prepared 5? And
yeah, absolutely.
I'm a type of guy that gets pissed off relatively easily, as you know, Nick. My number one least favorite guy to watch, I guess, is Aaron Rodgers. Number one,
I knew that was going to be on your list.
I 100% respect Aaron Rodgers, but he has terrorized my life for the past decade and even more than that. So, Aaron Rodgers is my number one dislike. I hate the guy with a burning passion, but I respect him, and I think he's an incredibly talented guy, which is why I hate him. If he was Jordan Love, I wouldn't hate him because he's just funny to watch, So Aaron Rodgers is number one on there. Number two, another guy that I can't stand is Pat Mahomes. This is going to
I
surprise
agree.
people. Everyone
I
loves Pat
agree.
Mahomes,
Really?
but I hate Pat
Really?
Mahomes. And I don't think it's Pat Mahomes' fault. I think that we overblew Pat Mahomes to make him into this god, and I think that's what bothers me the most about him. I was watching the game on they were Monday Night Football, and if you watch the game with volume a little bit too high, I was going insane sitting there listening to Pat Mahomes' voice. Like, he has a terrible voice normally, but for him to green, I did blue, what do you like? Listening to his voice was driving me nuts. I almost had to mute the game and watch it on silent because it just was driving me crazy. And he is the ugliest quarterback with a helmet on I've ever
Yeah.
seen. His helmet like does not fit his head or something. He has a lame
It's almost
like
too big.
yeah.
Peyton Manning
Just
is
sits
the
on
word.
there funny.
But at least it like looked decent on Peyton Manning. Like, it was very tall, but it fit his long ass head. Like Pat Mahomes, it looks like it's like squeezing his head up, and like
Yeah.
he has that big old forehead plate there. Pat Mahomes.
Hey, can I, before you jump into the third one though, Dave,
Yes.
I want to build on that a little bit because I dislike watching Patrick Mahomes too. And it's not because of not because of his play. All right. It has nothing to do with between the whistles. It's during the play. It's between the plays that drives me fucking bonkers. Every time that there's laundry on the field, even if he knows it's his tackle that's holding, he's doing this. He's doing this, trying to like, what are you doing? Are you going to try and you think that's going to change the refs' minds? No, they already made up their effing mind, dude. You think doing this is going to, no, that drives me nuts. And I hate how whiny he is. Everything it's just, oh, you got knocked down a couple times, or you mean, things that are clearly not penalties, and he just sits there and pisses and moans, and maybe that's probably why a lot of people dislike watching LeBron James, not trying to change sports, but he does that same thing. It drives me nuts, and I just
Yeah, I
so
mean, I agree with that aspect, and this is tough because I'm a Tom Brady guy. I know a lot of people that's a really, you either love him or you hate him type opinion, but Tom Brady's the same way as far as like whining for calls. He's the LeBron James of football, where like these guys have put themselves on the upper echelon of reality and of the human race, where they think that everything needs to go their way, where it's like some sort of storybook for them. They're like, this can't happen. I can't have a holding. Did you see that sick throw I just had? Like, this isn't how it's supposed to play out. And I'm like, dude, it was a hold. So just like every other team, back your ass up 10 yards and suck it up for the next
yep,
play.
yep.
But I think what we've seen a lot, and I'm not saying that Mahomes is a fraud or anything, because obviously I think he's a top tier quarterback, but you've definitely seen him take a few steps back without having Tyreek Hill on the field. Tyreek Hill last year being there opened up so many. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear your thoughts. But when I was watching the Chiefs, sometimes Pat Mahomes would close his eyes and just launch it downfield to Tyreek Hill, and you'd either see he separated himself from the defender and caught a touchdown, or they just had no choice but to tackle him and have a pass interference or a defensive holding, and they'd get that automatic first down. But what are your thoughts on that? You disagree?
2 words: Travis Kelce.
I know, but okay, that hammers my point home even more. Imagine if you took away Travis Kelce, who, in my opinion, is not only physically a god, he is so mentally ahead of all these other tight ends and offensive players. Like, he knows exactly where to go. He knows the holes. Him and Pat Mahomes have an incredible relationship that it's kind of like a Brady Gronk type relationship where or a Rodgers Devontae Adams relationship where they know where the other guy's going and they can just find the holes and find each other. So watching them two dominate now is really cool to see. But I think, you take away those kind of weapons, and I don't know. I look at a Tom Brady, I look at an Aaron Rodgers, and those guys will be successful with whoever they have. I think Pat Mahomes is there, but not quite up to the standard that those guys are.
And just, I want to touch real because I know you got 3 more QBs. Just touching on that, I feel bad because Nick was probably sick of me texting him on Monday night because I also have Kelsey in our dynasty league, and it was just like a party. I was just having a party on my phone, and Nick was having to deal with it. All the memes, all the gifts, I want it all. But I was a big Mahomes fan out of college, and I'm a huge Andy Reid fan. So for me, it was the perfect marriage. I think that's probably why I like him more than most people. But Nick, that's actually surprising because Nick and I talk a lot of football on the podcast and off. I did not know you weren't a huge Mahomes guy, so that's surprising.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, is his play is it. You'd be silly not to enjoy or and appreciate what he does on the field. It's just the in between the plays antics that really drive me nuts, and that bothers me.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I compare, if we're going cross sport comparisons, like I said, Tom Brady to LeBron James. I compare Pat Mahomes to a Steph Curry, who you love to. It's almost like watching art or watching like a play on Broadway. It's a beautiful thing, but I just cannot stand what they do like
You don't
outside
like
of the
Broadway?
game. No, I can't. I couldn't sit through and watch it because like there's little shit that drives me crazy. Like I don't that's my comparison, I guess. I hate Steph Curry and I hate Pat Mahomes. And it's
That's
not
fair.
because I don't respect them as athletes.
all right, who
Um
you got? You got a couple more for us?
we've spent way too much time on this. I'll list off the other ones quickly. Kyler Murray, he's just short and he's just a shitty quarterback, and I think he's overrated. He's I guess fun to watch when he scrambles. Besides that, screw him. Next, Russell Wilson. I used to love Russell Wilson when he came out of Wisconsin and he was going into the NFL and he was that guy with a chip on his shoulder and he shut his mouth and just played quarterback. I loved him. Then he got this like big ego boost and he's like all in his own head way too much and he thinks he's like some second coming of Jesus Christ or something, ready to save the world. And I hate him. Screw him.
No, but he does
Last,
have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ because he talks to him during the games.
yeah,
Yes, he
well, so
does.
that's not working out. That doesn't seem to be working out.
Yeah, just go back to the Super Bowl against the Patriots. He had a really nice conversation with God. You can look that up. Anybody, you guys can look that one up. I agree. Not a big Russell Wilson guy. You know, he always said that he was all about being the perfect guy and being a good guy. And I thought it was really convenient that the second that he had his first successful year, his high school or college sweetheart, who he was married to, went bye-bye and was shortly thereafter married to Sierra. So that's another thing to add to your point, David.
Who calls themselves Mr. Unlimited too? That's just the
Yeah,
lamest
what the-
nickname ever for a guy that sucks.
Yeah.
And before you give us QB5, Nick knows I have been a seller on Kyler Murray. Being that obviously I'm a huge fan of the quarterback, and like we're gonna do this in the segment with the would you rather with coaching and GM stuff. But Kyler Murray, as a fan of football, he is not who I would want to quarterback my team. He is a fantastic athlete, is a world-class athlete among world-class athletes, right?
Yes.
But he is not that guy that you believe in when you're watching him play. He looks like a spoiled little kid just doing whatever, and he's crying and he's whining. He's not a leader. The guys in the locker room don't follow him. He's not committed to the game. He's not a student of the game. I think he has all the potential in the world from a physical standpoint, but mentally and leadership. And to be a quarterback in the NFL, man, if you're not a leader, you're toast. So that was my 2 cents on Kyler Murray. I'm selling him as well.
I'm glad you agree. He should have stuck to baseball. My last but certainly not least, Taysom Hill. I don't know if he counts as a quarterback, but screw Taysom Hill, dude. I hate him. I hate watching him play. And one of the main reasons I hate watching him play is just everyone deep throating him. Like you watch a game with Troy Aikman on the call. Them talking about Taysom Hill makes you want to rip your eardrums out, dude. I hate Taysom Hill.
That's interesting.
I think that's the most rated R thing we've had on the pod so far, Nick. He talked about Taysom Hill getting deep throated.
That's okay. That shit's funny to me. Anyways, I agree with I had three and I agree with two of them. Then my third, and I'm not going to dive into it, but my third was Colin Kaepernick. Didn't like watching Colin Kaepernick. Good, very good athlete. Not a fan watching him.
So you said we're staying away from top politics. What happened to that?
We're strictly talking football.
It's just football. Yes, just football. So we're gonna do Dan's Would You Rather, and then Dave, I'm gonna give you some last thoughts, and then I'm gonna run through. I'm gonna ramble through some fun things that I saw this last week. So Dan, take it away, man.
Yeah, I know we're running long, and Nick and I joke every week we could talk forever, but we try to keep our viewers entertained for a shorter amount of time. So we'll run through these, but this is a new segment. We like to do new segments every week. I'm going to call it Would You Rather. So the first Would You Rather, I'm going to ask you of these coaches, or you can choose other. if you're a GM, who are you picking to coach your team? And as a player, who would you most want to play with? So, Nick, let's start with you. You're the GM. What current NFL coach are you picking to run your franchise and why?
Oh, that's really, really great question. I think, and maybe some names will pop up in your head, but I would want a young and well, I guess the guy maybe in the bottom right corner, it maybe fits the bill here, because I was going to say a young creative coach, but also a guy that is maybe a player's coach, because kind of with going with the times, it's not the 1970s anymore. You can't just bully your players. You can't be Bill Parcells anymore. Um, but a guy that he's a player's coach and the players respect him because they can communicate with him and get along. And I kind of what we're seeing. I know it's only 5-6 games in, but I feel like Mike McDaniel's is a really good fit there. Not only in Miami, but I feel like he would be a pretty solid coach anywhere he went.
What about as a player? Would you still like that crafty, kind of offensive minded guy, or who would you want to play for as a player?
I think so, especially because he's got that offensive mind. But we want to know what I really like about him, and I think that I would enjoy the shit out of it, especially if I was a player. Is that the swag that guy has? Have you seen his watches that he's got on the sideline, dude? They're like the size of a baseball. It's awesome, and they're gold. I would just think that would be hilarious. I mean, he's got these sweet shades on, like from the 70s or 80s, like being down in Miami. Oh, I think it's fantastic. I would love the shit out of that. And as long as I mean, I don't know how he treats his players, but from what you kind of see on the body language on the sideline, I think he's doing a good job so far in his first 5 games.
Yeah, it looks like they're having a lot of fun. And honestly,
Yeah,
I mean, they were one of the hottest teams in the league. You can't knock them for losing, two quarterbacks. So,
right.
Dave, what about you? You're the GM. You're building a franchise. What current coach are you picking to run? And if you were a player in the league, who would you want to play for?
Yeah, I love this question. I like your answer, Nick, and I don't disagree with it, but I'm going to take a different approach. I think you should have a younger guy that the players like to play for, but I think you also want to go to a certain point where the players don't consider you as a buddy; they consider you as their coach and as their leader. So I like looking at the top corner here with Andy Reid. If I'm a GM and I'm looking at Andy Reid, I love bringing him in. He's had a lot of success no matter where he is and no matter who he has on his team. Obviously with the Philadelphia Eagles before the Chiefs. Then he goes over to the Chiefs and he's built these excellent teams where if you interviewed every player that played for Andy Reid, not only do they love and respect his mind, but they've had a lot of success and they probably like to play for him. So I think having a guy like that come in who has had all these successful assistant coaches underneath him as well. Obviously, those assistants have had a lot of success at other places too, besides Matt Nagy. Thanks a lot, Matt Nagy. But if I'm a GM, I'm bringing in Andy Reid. If I'm a player, that's another story. That's a tough thing. I don't know if from the NFL locker room, if I'm looking at it like Nick looks at it, where I want this guy coming in dripping with swagger, dripping with confidence. The thing that concerns me about that aspect is looking at a guy like Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. Are these younger, like springy, energetic, cool young guys or whatever? Are they commanding the respect out of these grown men that maybe some other guys like a Bill Belichick or an Andy Reid or a Mike Tomlin, those kind of guys that the respect that they would get out of their players. So I think if I'm looking at it from a player standpoint, I bring in a guy like again Andy Reid, maybe a Mike Tomlin. And this is no disrespect to Bill Belichick. He's had so much success in the NFL. But I think it's time to move on from Bill Belichick. He's getting older. He's I think losing interest and losing the passion, and obviously losing Tom Brady is a huge loss for him as we've seen.
Yeah, I think Tomlin should have probably been on this graphic. I think, all the previous players that have played for him just rave about the guy. I mean, how many winning seasons in a row? I'm with you. You can't knock Belichick, like him or dislike him. You can't knock his success, but I don't like to Nick's point. I don't know if that kind of um, I don't know if that kind of dictatorship is going to work much longer, but I kind of like both of your guys' points. So
I think
cool.
I think it also depends too on who's running your team from the quarterback standpoint. If you look at the Packers, like with Matt LaFleur, I think everybody loves Matt LaFleur on the Packers. I think everybody loves playing for
Yeah.
him, but there has to be some sort of difficulty with a quarterback being similar age to the head coach. I think that sometimes might cause some tension, whether they talk about it or not. So I think you have to look at it that way too. It kind of depends on who's running the team. Would a Matt LaFleur be a great head coach for a guy like a Justin Fields, a guy like a Justin Herbert, those younger guys that are really talented? Yes, absolutely. Is it difficult for a guy like Tom Brady or a guy like Aaron Rodgers that's more established in this league? Maybe.
Yeah, good point. All right, moving along. I tried to spice it up with some different stuff here. All right, so you got quarterbacks. You notice Kyler Murray is not on here. It can be any one of these guys. It could even be Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. If you had to pick a quarterback for this season alone, and then a different quarterback to have for the next 5 years, another quarterback to have for the next 10 years, can't pick the same guy. Nick, who are you picking as your quarterback this year? You got to win a Super Bowl this season.
Okay, I got this. This is a really great question, by the way. I think I'm gonna go with this year, Josh Allen. His running, even though he's built like a goddamn ox, even though he does run, that makes me nervous. So the longevity, is a little freaky. 5 years, I'm gonna go. Oh shit, I did that backwards. I did do this backwards. Nope. All right, I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna run with it. All right, this year I'm gonna go with Josh Allen. 5 years, as much as I don't like watching the guy, Patrick Mahomes, you probably want in 5 years. And then for the next, if I had to pick for next 10 years, I'm gonna go with that young gunslinger up in the upper left corner in Los Angeles, and Justin Herbert. I think he's got, his arm strength is incredible, and I think he's a really smart player, and I think he's gonna be a really, really good quarterback for a long time. Not that these other guys won't be, but I think that he is big and strong, and he's smart, and he doesn't use and abuse his body like some of these other guys. And I think his longevity is going to hold up really, really well.
I love that. What do you got, Dave?
Yeah, I love this question. I'm a big quarterback guy myself. So I think this year you guys, I wasn't gonna say this because I figured you guys would say this, but I'll stroke it off and I'll say Aaron Rodgers if I had to pick a guy this year. Back-to-back MVPs, you can't deny the talent that the guy brings to the table. You put an excellent team around him. I'm definitely taking Aaron Rodgers this year. I was leaning Tom Brady too, but if I have to go this year, I got to go Aaron Rodgers youth over Tom Brady. For the next 5 years, the 5 and 10 years, I really struggled with back and forth, but similar thought process to you, Nick. I'm going Josh Allen for the next 5 years, mainly because of the longevity concern. I was worried about using Josh Allen for the 10-year mark just because of his mobility that he brings. I love his mobility, but it makes me concerned for his longevity on the team. And then for the 10-year mark, I am going to go with Pat Mahomes. I think Pat Mahomes is going to have that longevity. He's a really smart guy. He knows how to find the open receiver and read the defenses. He has a really strong arm, like you said, with Herbert. I think these guys will last a long time in the league. And I'm taking Pat Mahomes for the long run.
I love it. I think my stuff is very similar to your guys's. I am on the Josh Allen train this year, so I'm riding that bull this season. I don't know if he's going to make it 10 more, but I'll take him this year. All right. So I want to keep it moving because I know we're already running long. So I did not give this information to you guys ahead of time. We did a similar segment with Stu a couple weeks ago. So these are 2 running backs this season. The gentleman on your left is 27 years old. He's in his 7th year. He's finished in the top 10 for running backs in 5 of the 6 of his 6 seasons, finishing in the top 5 3 times. This season, 81 carries, 305 yards, 5 catches, 27, 86 total touches for a 3.9 yard average. And he was drafted in the 3rd round of our fantasy draft. The gentleman on the right, 25 years old, 4th season, best finish was RB 28, which was last year. Only plays 42% of his team snaps, but he's averaging 5.6 yards a carry, 7 catches for 71, 6.3 yards overall. And he was taken in the 8th round of our fantasy draft, and some people said he was taken too soon. Do you guys have any idea who these 2 running backs might be?
Yeah, I know.
I have an idea on the one on the left. Dave, which one do you know?
I think I know both.
Okay.
I don't know both. I don't know both, but I'm going to take a shot here.
And why don't you start with the one on the right then? Because I have no clue about the one on the right.
Okay, Dave thinks he knows it. So Nick, who do you think? Because I think Dave might have it. I feel like Dave might know what I'm doing here. Nick, who do you think's on the left?
I think Ezekiel Elliott is on the left.
Dave, what are you thinking?
Nick, I was going Ezekiel Elliott on the left and Tony Pollard on the right.
Ding, 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 ding.
Good work, dude.
Dude, that's awesome. To our viewers out there, I did not share this ahead of time. That was awesome. I could tell Dave had that spark and he knew it. So, yeah, I just thought this was an interesting stat. You got a guy in Zeke who's I feel like he's getting past his prime already. And you've got a Tony Pollard who's just got that extra juice. He's like corn, he's got the juice. So thoughts on this in Dallas? You guys are both really high on Dallas this year. So just curious, quick thoughts on these two running backs and how you view them moving forward for the Dallas Cowboys.
Nick, I'll let you take a stab at it before I give my thoughts.
I think it's maybe pretty even right now, as it, like you said, he plays 42% of the snaps, but I'd probably make it more 50-50. And I don't think Ezekiel Elliott's going to be on the Cowboys for much longer because of his cap hit, and he's not as productive as he once was. And sometimes money changes people. That could be the reason. It could be that their offensive line isn't as good as it was when he came into the league. But but at the same time, it's still a pretty solid duo combination in the backfield, and I would take that. I would take that. But I think Tony Pollard in the last year and a half, or 2 years, I think he's been the better back. And yeah, that was a fun one. That was good. That was good.
The thing I think about when I look at these guys, the first thing that kind of rings my bell upstairs is the Green Bay Packers. And I kind of look at these two guys, and I look at Ezekiel Elliott, and I kind of think of okay, now I'm blanking completely on his name. Help me out with the big back, 28.
AJ Dillon.
AJ Dillon. I look at Zeke and I think of AJ Dillon. I look at Tony Pollard and I think of Aaron Jones, and they're flip-flopped on the Packers. So I think about the Cowboys and I'm thinking, why don't you take a stab at flipping these guys' roles and seeing kind of how they can give you an advantage that way? I think Tony Pollard packs a really good punch from the receiving standpoint of things. So maybe get him in there on early downs. It's kind of backwards.
Receiver.
It's kind of backwards to what people normally think. You bring in the third down scat back to run out and get the dump offs, but why not bring that guy in early? And he's showing that he can run between the tackles too, especially because the Cowboys have usually put together a pretty good offensive line. I think the way that I feel about Tony Pollard though is, unfortunately, I worry that some team's going to pay him way too much money to be their feature back. He's not going to perform like how he can. He's kind of behind Ezekiel Elliott's shadow right now. He doesn't have as much pressure. He doesn't get those more crucial carries. So I worry if people give him a bigger role, he might not fill into those shoes as much as they want him to.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. And to Nick's point, having those two running backs, not in fantasy because everybody wants that bell cow, but I think in the NFL nowadays, it's not a bad idea to have two guys that you can trust. So, but I thought that'd be a fun one to throw up here. So moving along, I think this is the last one I got. We're going to move over to the wide receiver spot. I'll let you guys take a look. I'll let you guys take a look at these three guys. And Dave, if you can get all three of these guys, I will send you a little Wisconsin care package down there, but you got to get 3 out of 3. So,
oh boy,
first guy, 24 years old, third season. He's finished top 24 and 37, but he currently sits wide receiver 69, 16 catches through 5 games, playing almost 90% of his offensive snaps. Drafted in the 7th round of our fantasy league, and he's a big boy, 6'4", 238. Guy in the middle, 25 years old, 5th season, 4th round fantasy pick, 6 foot 210, plays almost every down, but he's still sitting wide receiver 47 with only 17 catches. And then the guy on the right, he's got some yards, but he's currently sitting wide receiver 31, also 6 foot 210, but drafted in the 3rd round of our fantasy league. Do you guys have any idea who any of these 3 guys would be?
Far left, is it Allen Robinson?
It is not.
Jesus.
I don't think Allen Robinson has that many catches, does he?
I don't think he's that tall
No,
either.
but Allen Robinson has been in the league longer than 5 years, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, definitely not his 3rd season. Yeah, that was a terrible guess.
So I will give you a hint. We've got an AFC North receiver on the left. We've got an NFC South in the middle and an NFC East on the right.
Far left, I got Chase Claypool.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. That gave it away that his size, didn't it?
AFC North, I thought immediately who's the big wideouts in the AFC North? Who's
Who's
been a
in the middle? Who's
disappointment? Chase
the
Claypool.
division in the middle, Dan?
NFC South. Also, a targeted rumor for trade. Drafted in the 4th round.
DJ Moore.
Oh, there you
Nailed
go.
it.
Good work.
And lastly, the guy on the right having a pretty respectful season, but a lot of his work has been done in garbage time. But he was drafted in the 3rd round. Any ideas?
In what division is this one now?
Oh, I'm going to give it away when I say the division, but NFC East.
Kenny
No,
Galladay? No.
Kenny Galladay isn't sniffing 19 receptions.
I mean, he's not even playing that 92% snaps. That was a bad guess as well.
This guy, I love this guy. I think he's got a lot of potential, but a lot of his success has been just garbage time. He's not really performing in first halves of games. I'll give you a hint. He plays against Dave's Chicago Bears on Thursday.
Oh, Terry McLaurin?
Scary
Yes.
Terry.
Yes. So I just thought this would be fun to throw out there. 3 names who were pretty hot topics before going into the season. Obviously, DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin have very high ceilings. Claypool, obviously not as high of a ceiling, but a very serviceable, very versatile guy. And none of these guys are doing much this season. So I'm just curious, quick thoughts on fantasy wide receivers right now. And more so a question, Nick, if you could go back to the draft for Dynasty, who's one wide receiver you would go back and target? Dave, same for you. If you were in a Dynasty league, who's a wide receiver that you would want to go back and target for this year's fantasy draft?
That's a really tough question because there's a few good ones. I mean, I don't think I would change my 4th overall pick when I took Jamar Chase. I think I'm going to stick with that one. Oh.
And Nick, while you're thinking about it, I'm still mad that you took Christian Kirk one spot before I was going to nail him.
Yeah, got him in the 9th round, Dave. 9th round on a Dynasty league.
And I had him written on my sheet and everything, and I'm sitting next to Nick. I think he looked over at my sheet and saw it.
Yeah, bullshit. Hey, he just got paid $84 million. You think they're just gonna like let him rot away over there in Jacksonville?
Hey, he's earning it though.
Yeah, he is. That's a really good question. I guess I had the opportunity. I do remember like taking a look at Amon-Ra St. Brown's name in our Dynasty League, and I passed on that. And he had a really good end of last year, and he's had some good success already this year. I think maybe that would be up there. But other than that, nobody really is coming to mind.
I noticed a trend of those 3 guys that you showed us. They all have quarterback problems. So
Yes.
it's hard to be a successful wide receiver with a shit quarterback, and that's what those guys are all struggling with right now. So interesting to see if that improves. Those are all really talented players, as you mentioned. So we'll see how things go. I have Terry McLaurin in 2 different leagues, so I'm hoping that pans out.
And how sad is it when Carson Wentz is the best of those 3 quarterbacks?
It's pathetic. One guy, I quickly, sometimes when I get questions like this, I just have to see the teams to spark something. So I quickly scrolled through the teams. One guy that I wish I would have went after, but he's kind of been blacklisted for me lately, is Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper's been quietly playing really well for the Browns under Jacoby Brissett, and they have a bright future coming up with Deshaun Jerkoff Watson coming back. So I'm thinking that Amari Cooper is a really hot commodity right now, and people are probably getting him in like the 5th to 7th round, I'm guessing.
I actually drafted Amari and traded him this season because I got DK and a 1st round pick.
Yep.
Can't argue with that.
Take it and run.
I mean, I gave up a pick, but not. I wanted that 1st rounder, and I got younger with DK.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think. Dave, dude, I think you're right on board with us. Where I feel like we could have sat here for another like 2 hours because we didn't even I feel like we didn't even scratch the surface with this tonight. And I don't know how you feel compared to. I mean, I know you do a couple other podcasts. What are those called, by the way?
Amateur Hour Podcast. Check it out on YouTube and Spotify.
Awesome. All right. And then I had an absolute blast tonight, and I hopefully we can do this again, and we definitely will do this again. We'll get this planned out. But do you have any last thoughts, Dave, before before I go on to Nick's notes before we conclude?
Yeah, all I gotta say is thanks for having me on. This was I was a little nervous coming on, but you guys, it was so fun to talk ball. You guys are two smart guys, even if you are Packers fans. So it was great being on the podcast with you. I appreciate it. It was a huge honor. I'm hoping that
Like he's taking it off.
Coming off.
I'm hoping that both of you make an appearance on my podcast as winners of the Pick'em League. As long as you give me a little share of the money. So thanks again for having me on. I'm looking forward to hearing Nick's thoughts here at the end of the podcast.
All right. So
I love Nick's notes. Nick, I'm going to set you up here. I love Nick's notes. He thought of this 2 weeks ago because, we're all watching football on Sundays and there's just, we're fans, right? We're thinking things that other people are thinking. So this is actually my second favorite part of the week is hearing Nick's random thoughts behind Obi's picks. What do you got now?
All right. So first off, what really came to my mind, and I think y'all are going to agree, is the NFC West. Who'da thunk? All right, that 3 out of the 4 teams are 2-3, including the Seahawks and the Cardinals. A lot of people are high on the Cardinals. A lot of people are down on the Seahawks. Yet they are tied with the Super Bowl champions, Los Angeles Rams, and backup Jimmy G is leading the San Francisco 49ers and leading that division at 3-2. I thought that was really, really interesting. And I hate to sound like a broken record here on my next 2. So last week I said that Cooper Kupp was projected 24.46 points. Guess what? Now he's projected 27.08 points. Yes. And this is a full point PPR, but can you believe that a wide receiver is projected for almost 30 points? That's kind of crazy to me. And his quarterback, this is Bo I'm talking, because Bo has Cooper Kupp. His quarterback is your guy, David, Justin Herbert, and he's only projected 20.23. So a wide receiver is projected to outscore Justin Herbert, which is not unthinkable, but it's a little crazy. And the second thing, do you guys remember, Dave, I'm going to ask you, cause I brought this up to Dan. Do you know how many times Tom Brady threw the football last week, not this week, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago? It would have been against, don't remember.
Green Bay?
No. Let me
It was
look up
week
really
4.
Let me look up real
The
quick.
Chiefs.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
How many times, do you know how many times he threw the football?
No, but I'm going to go 48.
52. 52
That's good.
times
That's
from
a
the
good guess.
45-year it was a good guess from the 45-year-old quarterback. Guess how many times he threw the football this week?
52.
52 times, 2 weeks in a row. What the F, man? That's crazy. All right. So what I thought was really, really fun is that Broncos Colts game that the Broncos fans before overtime were bailing. They're saying, bye-bye, we're out. They're sick of it. And I'm going to throw in a fun fact at the end about that game as well. But I wanted to say Daniel Jones is being DJ completely disrespected Quay Walker's speed. When I watched them throw Saquon Barkley over on the outside, he ran a fly route. They said, 9 times out of 10, a linebacker on Saquon Barkley running a fly route is the way to go, probably 99 times out of 10, but he disrespected Quay Walker's speed on that play because he broke that up. That was really awesome. Tottenham Stadium, beautiful. I don't know if you guys are soccer fans, but that stadium was gorgeous. That I'm excited. Maybe we'll get some more. I think that's going to be the NFL stadium going forward.
Next time Green Bay goes to London, Nick, let's go.
Yes. Yep. Dave, I ate my stat that I sent to you in our group chat for the Pick'em League that if the favorite is favored by more than 7 points, they were 7-0 in all time of London games. I ate that I got bent over and I had to eat my words after that game. That sucked. But whatever. All right. One more fun fact before we close this out. So on Thursday night, when it was the Broncos and the Colts, it was the first time in NFL history that both quarterbacks threw for 250 yards and neither team scored a touchdown. Crazy. All field goals.
That game was ugly.
Yes,
Disgusting.
It was.
Wasted my
not
night.
seeing in a blizzard, that game was ugly.
Well, Dan, thank you again for doing everything that you do for this, creating those visuals. It's awesome. It creates such an amazing dynamic to this. I appreciate you very, very much. Not only as a cousin, a friend, and a wonderful co-host here on the EHTC. And Dave, thank you for jumping on. You're our first guest that isn't involved in our Dynasty League, but I think you fucking crushed it. Thank you for coming on. It was an absolute blast, and I'm looking forward to next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, boys. It was fun.
Nick,
all right. Yes.
Packers score prediction this week before we sign off.
Against the Jets, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be like a 35-28, 35-30 score around there.
I like it.
So, all right. Thank you, guys. Thank you very, very much. And I cannot wait until next time. We'll talk to everybody later next week.
Go Bears.